Hi folks, Training Tip Thursday. And last week, assuming you saw last week's training tip, we talked a little bit more generically about race nutrition, what you should be eating during the week, etc. And today I thought I'd talk a little bit more specifically about what you want to eat before you run. Now I will tell you that largely what I'm talking about is having something to eat and something to drink from a hydration standpoint if you're a first thing in the morning runner. So if you do your runs the middle of the day or in the evening, this is really a lot less applicable to you, and that will be clear as to why when I go through this. But let's assume that you're one of those people like I was for many, many years, really kind of still am. You're up and, half an hour, 45 minutes later, you're out the door. So the two things that you want to do before you head out that door is you do want to have a little bit of something to eat, and you want to have a little bit of something to drink. From an eating standpoint, really you want simple carbohydrates, things that will digest quickly. The banana, the bagel, something that's not very heavy, but get a little something in your system. And you want to have a little bit of fluid, whether that be water or Gatorade or orange juice. In fact, if you were to have orange juice or Gatorade, that would actually be your eating, getting some of those calories as well as getting some fluids. You can kind of kill two birds with one stone. I generally don't like to do that because if you drink too much, then you're going to have a stop right away in your run. So you always got to try and manage that. How much should you have? The calories, you like 100 to 200 calories. You don't need a whole lot. From a fluid standpoint, 6-8 ounces, again, you don't need a whole lot. So why do you need to do this? Well, so two reasons. Let's talk about the fueling part of it first. So when you eat, your body's going to do that digestion. You're going to create glycogen. Glycogen is created in the liver, is then put in your bloodstream and delivered out into the muscles. When you sleep overnight, you pretty much deplete any of the glycogen that takes place in your liver. So then as you begin to deplete the glycogen or take it out of your muscles and it says, hey, blood, go get me more from the liver, there isn't anything in the liver until the next time that you eat. So the idea is to get some fuel, some glycogen back into your liver so this chain can get going again of having glycogen from the liver to the bloodstream to the muscles. It's 100-200 calories, not a real big deal. What about hydration? You say, well, I'm not thirsty. I just want to get up and I want to get out. So you lose a lot of water when you sleep. Every breath you take, you're breathing out water. It's part of your breath and then the vapor. And if you don't believe me, get on the scale just before you go to bed. I know the scale is kind of scary at night. You've been eating all day, whatever, but get on the scale and weigh yourself. First thing in the morning, weigh yourself again. The average person will lose 2 to 3 pounds overnight. Now, since you're not generally very active when you're asleep at night, you're going, where is all this weight coming from? Well, unfortunately, you haven't burned 2 to 3 pounds of fat. It's all water weight because you do have some sweating that goes on and you do lose a lot of water through that. So the importance of drinking is to start getting hydration back into your system. There's another reason for it too. Have you ever had something to drink, in particular in a race, and it feels like the water is just sloshing around in your stomach? That happens when you drink on a dry stomach. So I'll give you the example first. Imagine you have a sponge and that sponge is rock hard and you put it in a sink and you turn the faucet on to go on top of the sponge. Well, initially all that water does is kind of almost like bounces off the sponge and it gets a spot wet, then it starts to spread out and eventually the sponge gets wet and it starts absorbing that water. If the sponge is already wet, the water doesn't slosh off, it starts going into the sponge right away. Your stomach is really exactly the same. If your stomach is dry, it doesn't absorb fluids very well, and that's why you drink and you get that sloshy feeling. So chances are, after going all night without drinking, not only have you lost a lot of water through your breathing, your stomach is probably very, very dry. So you want to get just a little bit of fluid in there, both to get the hydration going, and again, to get your stomach to have some moisture in it, so that when you are taking in more hydration, whether it be during your run or after your run, you're going to absorb that into your body a lot better. Same type of thing in a race. That's the final thing that I will touch on. Really, these rules are pretty much the same for a race. The difference being, especially if you're training for something like a marathon, you want more than 100 or 200 calories. In fact, a lot of the books you read will talk about 800 to 1,000 calories 4 or 5 hours before the marathon. People go, oh my gosh, I got to get up at 2 in the morning. No, you don't have to get up at 2 in the morning. The closer you're going to eat to when you're going to race, the less you would eat. So in the event you're up 5 hours before the marathon, yeah, I'd have 800 or 1,000 calories of simple digestible carbs before that marathon. But most people aren't up that early. They're maybe going to be up 3 hours early, so you don't want 800 calories. That's too much at that point in time. You would scale that back. You're maybe going to have 400. So the same rule applies for races. You want to have some food. You want to have some hydration. How much food you have will vary with the distance that you're going to go. So fuel your runs throughout the week and fuel your runs if you're a first thing in the morning runner.